everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sideline Banter, brought to you by Women of Fantasy Football. I am Sam Holt, and of course, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Derek Tate. Tate, this is draft week. This is like essentially a very long Christmas week for you in many senses, because it feeds all the things that I know you love. The scouting, the predicting, the rumor mill, and then we finally get to know on Thursday who's going in the first round.
You know who's not going to the draft? Myself. I had to remove that off my Google Calendar, and that like really ruined like my 10 minutes there for a little bit. I was like, damn it, I wanted to go to the draft this year. But it wasn't in the card. So yes, Sam, we're going to be, like many of you out there listening, we're going to be watching the draft unfold from our homes. And hey, we still get to talk about the prospects. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Mm-hmm. It is like Christmas for me, and it's reflective in how many dynasty trades I've sent out this week.
Over under 10?
Oh. I'll let you answer your own question.
His over is 10, people. All right, guys, if you are tuning in, first, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys tuning in live on Tuesdays with us. If you have any questions, maybe dynasty trade questions, or you just want to talk some other rookies that you guys are going to be seeing coming in this week, please throw those in the chat. We'd be more than happy and excited to talk to you about those. Tate and I have been going through every division and covering the different moves this offseason. So, of course, because the draft is in Pittsburgh, my lovely fandom, we saved the AFC North for last. So we will be going through those, as well as, of course, talking about some of the top rookies to keep an eye on. So make sure you tune in for the whole thing. I kind of want to start off shockingly, not that I'm again trying to hold off talking about my Steelers, but there was a trade that happened in the recent days, and we need to discuss it as it concerns the Cincinnati Bengals. They made a trade and grabbed Dexter Lawrence from the New York Giants, and now the Giants are sitting with pick 5 and pick 10 in the first round, which is a pretty awesome haul for them.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome haul for a team that wants to kind of have a new wave brought in and kind of molded in the shape of how John Harbaugh wants to set up his franchise to succeed and, get back on track where the Giants have, had made the playoffs once during the Brian Daboll era. So yeah, getting the number 10 overall pick for Dexter Lawrence, who, by the way, when healthy, is a damn good player. Yeah. But only had 1.5 sacks last year, I think. So the 10th overall pick, and you got to pay him. Mm-hmm. It's a move for the Bengals that I see certainly could help them if he's fully healthy, but kind of confusing because you refuse to pay Trey Hendrickson, so you go ahead and trade and pay for a defensive tackle. A bit confusing, but I get it if Lawrence resembles what he was the prior 2 years.
See, the way that you're painting it just makes it sound like more of Bengals move to me. Like that just makes all the sense. Like if they've already had struggles with trying to, get the ink to dry on any contracts, or even getting them printed out of the printer to get them to the players, this totally fits that they would trade away a pick that they probably really need to continue to rebuild this team, and rather grab someone that they're again going to have contract struggles with.
That's the thing. You're probably going to have more contract struggles with Dexter Lawrence, who wanted his way out of New York for contract issues. So, Sam, I'm going to ask you, because of how things have went over the last few years, what's not too long ago, this Cincinnati Bengals team went to the Super Bowl and pushed the Rams to the brink in the fourth quarter. And they haven't been back. They went to the playoffs the following year, but they haven't after that immediate season, they have not been back to the playoffs since. So, and they've paid Joe Burrow, they've paid T. Higgins, they've paid Jamar Chase. Sam, is this a move by a franchise that kind of feels desperate?
It does feel desperate. And it's funny because you bring up the Super Bowl that they went to, February 13th, 2022. It's really not that long ago. But it feels like at least 10 years ago, based on not only just the fall for this entire team, the number of injuries that they've had, but also just the struggles that they have to build a roster that's succinct and can actually function together. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, this just totally feels on track for them as a Bengals organization to make this move and to create more struggles. It makes sense because it doesn't make sense. It's like that line, from one of those Glass Onion movies where it's like, it's so dumb, it's brilliant. No, it's just dumb. Like, that's kind of what it feels like.
I understand the logic behind it, and they did get a good player. They did. They did. When healthy, Lawrence is a top 3 defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, but you want to grab a player that doesn't have an asterisk next to his name, don't you?
Of course, for the number 10 overall pick. I know it's not it's not the most exciting class in a lot of ways, but it's still the number 10 overall pick. And it's still an opportunity to build your team with additional assets, and a team that, has so many offensive line struggles that you'd want them to go out and grab someone that's going to bring depth and hope to that side of the ball. And at the very least, you get someone young that's got talent that you can at least push and do some level of blocking for Joe Burrow. But anything. You could have gone. You can go offensive lineman if you want to go the Vega out of Penn State, the interior offensive lineman. If you want to go that route at number 10, you can. You can also try to start building up that defense. Last year with Shamar Stewart, they obviously swung and missed in year 1. Now, his story is not in ink yet. It's not dry, but it's certainly not off to a great start. They kind of took a big swing, didn't work out in year number 1. You certainly have some intriguing top defensive talent at the top end of this draft that probably you could have gotten at number 10 overall, and you address the defense with that pick. But for a team that doesn't really like to spend money, Sam, to go and trade that pick, which would have been far, far more financially efficient, I guess would be the word, or beneficial to keep that pick instead of giving it up for a veteran, a high-priced veteran at the top of the market at a non-premium position. Boy, it's a bit of a head scratcher, but it's a big swing, and I guess they're trying to do everything they can to maximize this 1 or 2 year window that they think that they still have with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase and company on the offensive side, and trying to get a star on the defensive side of the ball that can make an instant impact.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Let's stick with the Bengals and just talk about, again, additional moves, because they lost Trey Hendrickson this offseason. Additional moves, and that was a fun little dance around that defensively we saw players have. We already talked about that a little bit before, but we're going to end up talking about it again because we'll get to the Ravens in a second. But still, I guess when you look at this roster and you think about obvious gaps, and again, I mentioned the offensive line, and that is a huge gap. They need to bring in, not only just bring in talent, but they need to go after talent. Their first pick, if I'm reading the draft board correctly, isn't until the 41st pick which is in round 2. So correct. In round 2, knowing how many gaps that this team has, who are you hoping that they walk away with?
Well, I'm kind of hoping that they turn their attention to this defensive side of the football. Sam, as much as it's fun from a fantasy lens to talk about offense, I think defensively is probably where they need to try to focus their efforts. I think that they would do a backflip if Jermod McCoy, who has some injury concerns, but is a first-round talent, slips to them in the second round. We saw that with multiple cornerbacks in last year's draft with Will Johnson and even Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, who fell to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and even Siobhan Revell from ECU landing with the Dallas Cowboys. They all were kind of dealing with their own injury issues or had their own injury red flags, if you will, medically. So if Jermon McCoy falls to them, that would be outstanding. I could also see them taking D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana if he is available when the Bengals are on the clock in round 2.
I like that. Those are good ads. Again, this is just a team that, off-season moves. You want to see teams going out there getting better. This division has historically had so much strength behind it, and right now, watching this off-season play out is feeling like the entire division is getting a little bit weaker as they go. So we'll keep going through the rest of these teams. But I want to jump in the chat and make sure everyone knows. This one from Chandler. Do you guys answer dynasty questions? Absolutely, Chandler.
Oh yeah.
Throw them in the chat. Guys, if you have any questions when it comes to the draft, we're talking AFC North, but we are going to be talking about different, fantasy players that are available, and we should keep an eye on going into Thursday. We'll be talking about those too, so please throw them in chat. We'll pull them up, and we will get to you. All right, let's go from the Bengals. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Let's talk about my Steelers, as much as I don't want to do it. I think some of the big news that I'm seeing going around is that the Steelers are not and have not heard an answer about Aaron Rodgers and what his plans are going into this season. This is exactly the situation I didn't want my team to be in going into the draft, and I was hoping that old man Rodgers has learned from years past to just give us a freaking answer. I will say that there's, of course, some amazing guesses and hot takes going on out there, but one of my favorites that I heard from my good friend Gene Clemens, who's on Fantasy Life Sirius XM with my bestie Kendall Valenzuela, Gene had a great idea, and I wanted to throw this one to you because I think it's a really good call. The Steelers say, Rodgers, we don't care what your decision is. Go and live your life and have fun. We're going to make a trade with the Giants and grab us Jameis Winston as a stopover for next season's quarterback class. And all fantasy managers go to the streets and have a parade because now we have volume coming into the Steel City.
As a Buccaneers fan, if you want to go ahead and sign yourself up for the Jameis Winston experience for an entire season, go right ahead, Sam. It'll be a lot of fun, I promise you.
Hey, it's fine. I just need someone to throw the ball and just to have that confidence. Bring that swagger. It can't be that bad. He's had LASIK since he was with you guys, so it's got to get better.
It hasn't.
I don't care. I just want someone with good vibes.
He was done with the Bucs in order to get LASIK surgery. No, he may have gotten it like ahead of his final year in the Bucs. Anyway, the point of the matter is he waited multiple years to get LASIK surgery as a quarterback in the National Football League. That guy's a joker. I love him. He's entertaining.
He's fun.
A lot of fun. But I'm telling you, if he's the quarterback of your team and he's playing in meaningful games, you're going to have to just accept that it's going to be a roller coaster, and that roller coaster is going to break down quite a bit.
I think I've accepted that it's going to be a roller coaster, so I just want someone else on that ride with me who's at least put his hands up in the air and go woo on the ups and downs, and Jameis would be fun to go on roller coasters with. So, and then from fantasy perspective, I like the idea of having a higher volume for this offense. We need someone who is going to go out there and make passes and take risks, and he's going to do that. Rodgers was just, having picnics in the back until he got tackled. Like, he was not quick with his decision making this last season. So for me, I just want someone that's going to bring energy into this offense, which it desperately needs.
Well, one thing that energy-wise, I'm excited about Michael Pittman coming to the team, because you have DK Metcalf already on the outside, on the perimeter, kind of your traditional X. And then you have Michael Pittman, who has a little bit of flexibility to flex inside as kind of a big slot option. And you saw Sam last year. I think part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers held the ball, I thought he was getting the ball out of his hands really quick more often than not, because he didn't want to get hit. And then
watching him get hit was brutal. It was like...
It looked like an old man getting hit.
I know. I felt like AARP was getting calls constantly, hey, you've got someone that's lost and you need to go and find them, their family, because someone's wandered into this field.
It's probably not helping with his life insurance premiums or anything of that nature.
Not.
But the point of the matter is, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, if he is going to be the quarterback, which I have to imagine, you bring in Mike McCarthy. They haven't made any sort of hard decision on Aaron Rodgers yet, Sam. I believe that all points to they expect that he will be coming back and be a part of the team's plans. That being said, you bring in Michael Pittman and Rico Dowdle. That basically means anybody that has Caleb Johnson. Speaking of which, for Chandler, if you have a dynasty question about Caleb Johnson, you're not going to like the answer. But when it comes to Dowdle and Jaylen Warren, I think it's going to be a nice 1-2 punch, which is kind of where I think Jaylen Warren, we saw last year, he's kind of a 1B. Dowdle can be the 1A as far as early down work goes. I think that's a nice pairing in that backfield. But then you also have kind of questions at quarterback, Sam. If Aaron Rodgers does or doesn't, I'll ask you this, because right now they're picking number 21 overall. Scott Simpson. What are your thoughts? Because he could be there at 21. It seems sure as hell like he's going to be.
I will be so disappointed if we take Ty Simpson, simply because we already have Will Howard, and I feel like his track record in terms of wins and championships is better. So why would we go and get Ty Simpson? Like, that doesn't make sense. As well as, why would we waste that pick on a quarterback knowing next year's quarterback class is going to be what it is? I would rather, honestly, trade back and get a pick for next year and stock up on second round picks and add depth to the other positions that we absolutely need them at. If that's how we're going to treat this, then I would rather double back, because it doesn't make sense to me to go and start the season with a Ty Simpson and a Will Howard and have no veteran direction. Yes, we still have Mason Rudolph, but that's not the same thing.
In theory, trading back is always something that should intrigue any NFL team. The problem is, who are people gonna want to move up to 21 that's going to entice the Steelers enough to move out of that spot? So we'd have to wait and see.
Someone else can take Ty Simpson.
We don't know that, but I mean, it seems like a lot of the NFL draft pundits have first round grades on somewhere even as low as like 10 players to like around the 18, 19 range. So again, we'll kind of see how the board plays out, and everybody's board's a little bit different. But, Sam, one thing about the Steelers, though, at least in the Mike Tomlin era, they don't get top 10 picks. And even if it is a stacked quarterback class in 2027 and all the guys that we expect to come out, at least the blue chip prospects do come out next year, which is not a guarantee. Are the Steelers going to be picking high enough to be able to land one of those top quarterback prospects? So if Ty Simpson falls in their lap, and look, I'm not saying Simpson is a perfect prospect. Like, I do have some concerns about his size. I certainly have some concerns about his accuracy, because he seems to have, spray the ball all over the place type of issues, right? But he does have tape that speaks to him being able to throw with anticipation, play on time with some NFL concepts. So, like, I could see maybe McCarthy being able to work with him if Rodgers is a bridge guy and really does want to run it back for one more season with Mike McCarthy. I'm just spitballing here.
See, and I feel like Rodgers would have just given us the answer already if he was even excited to be back with Mike McCarthy. Like, why else? He knows that his clock is ticking. There's less sand going through the dial, if you will. This is going to likely be his last year if he even wants to play. I mean, how much is really left in the tank after you watched him get absolutely pummeled last year? There's no way he wants to continue to keep going like this. I mean, he can't. He's getting too old for this shit, to quote Lethal Weapon. You say, like, how can they? Obviously, they don't have a top 10 pick, and they haven't had one historically in a very long time. Trade out of that 21 pick with a team like the Jets, who have the number 2 for next year. I don't know. Make some level of a deal where you secure a top 10 pick. Just do something. This is my desperation cry. I've got therapy on Thursday. We're going to cover this with my therapist then too. Again, it's before the draft, so thank God I'm going to have some level of sanity before it goes down. But this is my plea. Let's get ourselves picks or set up in a way for success to build for the future and not for just 1 month. Because it feels like right now our blinders and our depth perception only sees 1 month at a time, not even an entire season at a time.
Yeah, I would keep an eye on the Steelers potentially if he's there. Like Dylan Tiedemann from Oregon, the safety at 21 overall. That'll kind of tip the hand that they know that Rodgers is coming back. And then, even Emmanuel McNeil Warren from Toledo. Like I could see them really trying to address the safety position because they had to roll Jalen Ramsey back there.
Yeah, they did.
So they had some issues on the back end. So I could see the Steelers trying to maybe add some depth along the back end at the one of the two safety spots if they stay at 21 and they don't go on the offensive side of the ball.
I like that. I'm more than happy to continue to round out this defense and get it built, the way that it needs to be. I just really hope they don't, because to me, it's like you already did a lateral move. I mean, it's hard to say lateral because I do love Coach Tomlin deeply, who I love to see that now we're going to get to see him as a correspondent doing having one of those hot seats.
That's going to be fun.
I'm stoked for that because we don't get many words out of him during press conferences, and knowing he has to talk on a live broadcast every week, like I'm just gonna be sitting there with my popcorn ready to hear it. But then you go, and I say laterally only because of his age, but you go and get Mike McCarthy. And so it's like, okay, what are we going to really see that's different or build in terms of this team? To me, it would be a lateral move to then go and grab Ty Simpson, knowing again that you have Will Howard. I just don't want to see it. Just guys know if it happens, I'm going to send nothing but sad gifts through X, and I'm just going to be a sad puppy. I hope that we address additional defensive positions or anything else besides that. Can we? Are we done?
I understand.
Can I be done?
We can be done with it.
That was so painful.
Rip the Band-Aid off. That was a long Band-Aid, but yes.
I did a Spartan race this weekend, so I'm incredibly sore, and this was more painful, like to even try to think about the entire future. And I've got bruises literally from my arms down to my toes of crawling around this past weekend. So anyways.
Nice flex with the Spartan race. So hold on.
If I had a good time, it'd be a better flex, but I survived. Let's just put it that way. All right, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens because we talked about it slightly before. They went ahead and they did add Trey Hendrickson. That whole debacle with Max Crosby, I felt like it was a really poor stunt on the Ravens side because, one, you knew that the medical wasn't going to come back 100%. And so to kind of scapegoat that and have buyer's remorse with him was a little bit... I don't know. I left a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't cool. It wasn't good. Not cool. Yeah, not cool. But again, I mean, when you look at the Ravens going into this next season, besides that ad, I'm not seeing a ton, at least for me, that's jumping off the page. Were there other moves that you felt like, okay, well, at least that's something they can hang their hat on?
As far as what they did this offseason, I mean, they lost Tyler Linderbaum.
They lost Tyler Linderbaum. No, and so in terms of ads, what additional ads have they made? Because they also, to me, lost Coach Harbaugh, and I feel like that was a big loss too. Because I didn't think they needed to move on from him.
Well, depending on whatever your feelings are about Jesse Minter and where Harbaugh was and his approval rating, I guess you could say, within the locker room.
Sure.
I'm not sure everybody looks at it. I mean, it's a big loss because it's a lot of change, right? And we've seen that there's a pretty high floor with Harbaugh as the head coach of the Ravens with Lamar Jackson under center when Lamar is healthy. So it's a risk for sure. But really the losses along, of Linderbaum, and then we're not even talking about the two tight ends they lost too with Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler, who is kind of an underrated blocking tight end, which has kind of helped with Derrick Henry having, back-to-back outstanding seasons past the age of 30 as far as pure rushing production. So, I mean, certainly the guard from Penn State is one that I already mentioned that he could be in play for the Giants at number 10 overall, but certainly the Ravens with the loss and kind of the issues they had depth-wise in the interior of that offensive line stands out to me. But one, Sam, from a fantasy lens that I think does make a little bit of sense with the two losses at tight end is Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. I mean, guy runs in the 4.3s at tight end. I mean, that's an alien.
It is. He is an alien. But I mean, when I said, look, what other moves have the Ravens made this offseason to add? This is a future possible. They haven't even made this ad yet. So I'm really curious to see how they go into this draft because, again, to your point, they lost several tight ends that had incredible talent. It feels like they have a lot of holes to address. Let's see, they're picking at 14 in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So That's a little bit high for a tight end, don't you think?
Not
Or is he that big of a specimen that you're like, this actually makes sense?
Sadiq, I think that his immediate impact is going to be a little bit limited, like we've seen with Isaiah Likely over the last few years, right? With him splitting time with Mark Andrews in oftentimes what looks like a run-heavy offense. Yeah, Lamar gives a bunch of explosives through the air and can put defenders through the nightmare ring on a regular basis when that offense is humming. But, when it comes to Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews and them splitting time, it wasn't really anything that you could count on from a fantasy lens, except Mark Andrews scoring a lot of touchdowns 2 years ago. And even prior to that, when he was the focal point of the passing attack, but now he's lost that role to Zay Flowers. So Sadiq certainly intrigues me, but I would go guard if I were the Ravens. Like, you need 14 to address the interior of the offensive line after losing Tyler Linderbaum, which I don't think this front office thought that they were going to lose Linderbaum, but the Raiders just overpaid immensely
and that's the thing.
Linderbaum services. So.
And that's the thing I'm seeing with this division. I don't see the tenacity from any team in this division to go out and make moves to build for future the way that I've seen other teams and the way we've already talked about so many other teams going out and making those payments. We already talked about the Colts, and yes, they've spent a ton of money, but they're going out and trying to get players and trying to make moves. You see other teams like the Raiders who are going out and trying to be as well-rounded as possible, making additions that are going to make them better on both sides of the ball. AFC North teams have not been doing that this offseason. I mean, besides the trade that the Bengals made, which, yes, you can say that Lawrence is, obviously a good fit for them to address a gap, sure. But besides that, what other huge moves, unless I'm just completely blanking on one, besides losing coaches and losing talent to other teams, have we really made here as a division whole? I haven't seen them.
Not a ton. I mean, the Ravens, we haven't even brought up the fact that they lost Keaton Mitchell, who I actually think is a really nice change of pace back when healthy. And now he's kind of become Devon Achane, dollar store version, if you will, over there in Los Angeles, alongside and probably working behind Amari in Hampton. But so, I mean, it certainly feels like the Ravens have had far more departures than additions. I don't think the addition of Trey Hendrickson outweighs all of the losses that they've had this offseason. So I think that they need to hit some home runs in the draft. And, defensively, they've invested a lot of draft capital in the secondary over the past few years with Nate Wiggins and Malachi Starks. Of course, they got Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey. So, I mean, they've got a nice core of back-end players. Yeah. So it's really the front seven, but you already addressed it with Trey Hendrickson to some extent, and you drafted Mike Green last year. So you're kind of looking either the interior of the defensive line, which you can wait until day 2 or day 3 to address if you really want, or you can look at maybe linebacker to go alongside Roquan Smith. Maybe unless Sonny Styles fall, I don't see them taking C.J. Allen or Jacob Rodriguez. So that's why I'm focusing on the offensive side of the ball, Sam. With either with Vega from Penn State or with Kenyon Sadiq at tight end. So that's where my mind's going for the Baltimore Ravens.
I mean, that makes sense. Again, just looking at the depth chart, there's a lot of gaps in play where there's, at least in other teams, yes, there's some offseason moves and some team players that need to be signed still, but there's just gaps across the board here in terms of who is going to be playing on this team in 2026. So I have several concerns there. Really curious to see who they bring on. I like the tight end call out there. I'm sure we'll talk about him as we go through other fantasy positions.
If they don't go with Sadiq in the draft, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they signed David Njoku.
Ooh. That would be interesting. That'd be a good move. That's a great way for us to segue and talk about the Browns. It's like you've done this before, Tate.
Meant to be.
Last one to talk about before we go through some of your favorite rookies to keep an eye on going into this Thursday draft day. Guys, again, if you are tuning in and you have any draft questions, dynasty questions about anything, throw them in the chat. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about them. Talking about the Cleveland Browns, they have signed Todd Monken as their head coach. That is their news, and they have not re-signed David Njoku. I don't know what else to talk about when it comes to the Browns. They were the last team I wanted to talk about, which is why we're talking about them now. In terms of looking at what their 2026 is going to be, does it feel like, as of right now, Shedeur Sanders is going to be their QB1 going into this season?
I think it's a competition. I'm not sure they're going to hand it to Shedeur. Now, I think that it's hard to roll Deshaun Watson back out there after the huge swing and miss that this franchise took at the time that they took it, and it hasn't worked out. So, I mean, but Watson healthy, certainly we've seen him have success in the NFL before. It's been far removed since those days, but
it's been a minute.
But Shedeur Sanders, I think that they're going to give him the inside track, right? Yeah. I think that they want him to win that job. So would I be surprised at all if he's the week 1 starter? No, I wouldn't. This team though, they have Harold Fannin Jr. and Quinshon Judkins, who I like at running back and tight end. I
love Quinshon. Yeah, I love Quinshon.
Even Dylan Sampson has they drafted 2 running backs last year, and I like Dylan Sampson too. But at wide receiver,
yeah, it's just
there's not a whole lot to like right now. So
dusty and windy.
Yeah, a bit. So and I don't see them taking a quarterback at 6.
No, they took like 4 last year.
Yeah, maybe if they've done their homework on Ty Simpson and they like him, maybe at 24 or even 39, we'll see. But that makes the room even that much muddier. So, and without a clear, defined answer as to who really is going to be the guy. So it's, I don't know. It just feels like a potential headache. So when it comes to them at 6, though, Sam, I want to ask you, this is your division. You watch enough Browns football against your will, twice a year.
Against my will. Yeah. twice a year against my will.
At 6, say no receivers have been taken in the first 5 picks. Who do you think is the receiver that you would like to see land in Cleveland as their number 1 for 2026? And hopefully, either it works out with Shedeur or they get an upgrade with a better prospect in 2027.
I'm not sure. Because that's a really complicated question, even the way you phrase it. Who do I want to see with the Cleveland Browns? Which it means I have to wish that upon them. It feels really mean. I don't know. They're sitting at 6. I mean, Carnell Tate right off the board. Do you feel like he's going to even last till 6?
I definitely think there's a chance. Absolutely.
I feel like he makes a lot of sense in terms of just bringing, again, a spark to a wide receiver room that absolutely needs it. Mekhi Lemon, has already been controversial kind of going through this draft process. So it kind of fits that the Browns would go and take someone, that has some question marks as well. Already being controversial kind of fits Browns football. I feel like that it makes sense for the Browns to take a wide receiver there at 6. Again, looking at just the way that everything else is balanced out. And again, to your point, the running backs that they stacked last draft, and they drafted like 4 quarterbacks and made different moves last year. They can't do that again. That would be ridiculous. So for me, I think that they have to go receiver early just to bring some life to that locker room.
Maybe. I could see them also going offensive line. CeCe Mawanoa, who is kind of, I think, the tackle 1 in this draft class. I could see them going there at 6 and then maybe trying to address the receiver position with the 24th overall pick or early 2nd round. But, I would say of the players, now Jordan Tyson has a lot of physical tools and flashes that get a lot of people excited, right? But he has an injury history in college that's also not very exciting. On the flip side, like there's some risks certainly with investing in the 6th overall pick in Jordan Tyson. And then Mekhi Lemon, I like, he's a slot demon. But I think the player that probably has the highest floor, and it certainly seems, Sam, with the factory that has been coming out of Ohio State at the wide receiver position in recent memory, it does not seem like a bad bet at all to take a wide receiver, the top prospect coming out of that school in the NFL draft. We've seen it with Emeka Egbuka, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Marvin Harrison Jr. has actually been a disappointment, but certainly has had his moments. Garrett Wilson. I mean, the names go on and on and on. So, yeah, I see a lot of that in Carnell Tate. I think he has probably the highest floor and feels like the safest investment at the receiver position in this year's class.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And a good fit for them. I mean, how many picks do the Browns even have in the first round? They usually have more than one. No, it just looks like
two.
One.
You got
they
two
got two
this
in the
year.
First.
6 and 24.
6 and 24. Yeah. 6-24. Adding more to that offensive line, I think, is going to be really helpful. Again, you got to get more time for Shedeur if that's your plan to run him out there. I don't know. I think the bright spot to me looking at their defense I mean, it's chalk to say, but you still love Myles Garrett. And he's having a fun offseason as well. He's been in the news a lot, obviously going to the Olympics and having a good time himself. So I feel like, hopefully they get him some additional help so it's not just him out there. But again, I just feel like, to sum up this entire division, we're lacking some big moves across the board in terms of bringing fire back to this division. So I'm hoping, given it is in Pittsburgh, that we see some big trades, we see some moves for all the teams in this division. So I can start getting excited, because this is the most apathetic and uninterested I've sounded going into a season about my entire division.
Apathetic, I'd say pessimistic probably is a bit more accurate right now. Just the vibes I'm catching from how you're speaking into the mic, your tone, everything. Cheer up, Sam. It's still, you're 0-0 right now. No games have been lost.
You know what? I would probably be happier if you and I were doing this live from Pittsburgh and we were actually there. And I might be a little bit sad and bitter, but maybe next year. We'll see.
We digress.
Let's talk about top players that you like going into this draft. Again,
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about the quarterback position. Of course, I know that Fernando Mendoza is going to get like a half-hour lead up to being drafted first overall by the Raiders. But why should fantasy managers be excited for him here with the Raiders? I think there is a long list that includes being surrounded by what should end up being a pretty fun offense going into this season.
Yeah, so when it comes to Mendoza, there are a lot of things to like. I love the competitive aspect that he brings to it. And by competitiveness, I mean toughness, physical toughness. We saw that on display during the college football playoff. Love that touchdown run that he had against Miami in the national championship. But, he stands in the pocket. He will get blasted and still deliver the ball. Now, there are some concerns on tape that I have that make me feel like, one, he's not a slam dunk, right? Like a lot of how he generates his force as far as driving through the ball. If he doesn't keep his mechanics in line, he doesn't have the most natural, pure arm strength. So a lot of it's tied to his base, and that can get a little bit sloppy. And there are some times too, Sam, where I kind of saw him drop his eyes a little bit, get a little bit of happy feet. Now, I'm not saying he did it all the time. I'm saying if I'm nitpicking on some of the reps that concerned me a little bit, that was there. And then I think that led to some issues when it comes to him throwing with anticipation over the middle of the field. Like you saw a lot of the back shoulders during the college football playoff, right? He can make those throws. And he's certainly willing to, he plays the game between the ears from the pre-snap process, being able to diagnose what defenses are in and know where to go with the football. That part, I think he's got plenty of that, which is very, very encouraging. He plays the game between the ears from a preparation standpoint. But when the ball is snapped and it's live, there are some times where I wish he would have hung in a little bit more and even gotten to his backside reads across the middle of the field that make me go, I wonder if the Raiders offensive line in particular, if it's not fixed, is that going to be an issue where if he gets hit early, is he going to get a little bit skittish in the pocket, in the earlier years, right, of his NFL career, which is why I think that the Raiders probably signed Kirk Cousins to make sure that he doesn't have to start day number one. That's why they made that a priority. So and he's also not a top tier athlete. Like he's a good athlete, but he's not like a dynamic dual threat guy, which I think just caps the dynasty superflex fantasy ceiling from Mendoza a little bit. Like, I could see him having a Kirk Cousins career, like being a solid player, being a solid distributor of the football, managing and running the offense. And he can be productive in that role, but I just don't know if we're ever going to see I don't know if we're going to see a guy that, is like a perennial top 5 dynasty fantasy superstar at quarterback with his physical profile. But maybe it does click with Clint Kubiak and Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. They have to get some help out on the perimeter, though, for me to be a bit more excited about his fantasy outlook moving forward.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And honestly, I do feel like that all of those reasons that you listed are big reasons as to why they went ahead and signed Kirk Cousins, not just because they look so darn similar, but because I think that he is a perfect veteran presence to pair with someone like Fernando Mendoza, again, to take that pressure off, to your point, so that he doesn't have to feel that pressure if he's not, 100% clicking as they're going through practices, training camp and all of that to get him ready for this season. I do think that it makes a lot of sense that they have Kirk Cousins there to start. But what better way to pair a rookie quarterback than to have him with a tight end that you can absolutely count on with Brock Bowers. I'm very excited to see what the two of them can do together. I think that when I'm looking at this in terms of talent and other gaps that I'm hoping they address in this draft, again, like you already mentioned, they went ahead and grabbed Tyler Linderbaum. I feel like that's going to be a huge add for them on offense.
100%.
Not only, again, having Kirk Cousins there to take the pressure off, I'm looking to see what wide receivers they can continue to add to this room, because that is a place where I do feel like they still can add some talent there. I mean, Brock Bowers can catch a lot, but he can't catch everything.
Room for improvement on the receiver portion of the depth chart.
Yeah, no. So they're obviously going to be taking Mendoza at 1, and then their next pick is in round 2, 4th pick in the 2nd round. They're going to the Raiders. Do you feel like that would be a good spot for them to grab someone? We've already talked about Carnell Tate likely going to go early off the board for wide receivers. Who's another one that you like possibly going to the Raiders?
I don't know if it'll be in round 2, because they do have to add some defensive talent on, some talent on the defensive side of the football as well.
Sure. I only care about fantasy. I want offensive points, obviously.
I know. But at some point, I could see them absolutely taking a wide receiver in this draft.
Yes.
So, I mean, the problem is guys like Omar Cooper, Casey Concepcion, and Denzel Boston. I don't think any of them are going to be there in round 2. If they are, then that becomes a very pertinent conversation for the Raiders, at the top of the 2nd round. But a guy that kind of screams a Raider to me, that has, I think, prototypical size, right? And ran a 4.42, and his movement ability, he just looks the part to me. And that's Ted Hurst from Georgia State at wide receiver. This guy, there are flashes, like his movement ability. When I saw a guy that big, that accelerates that fast, like this suddenness right off the line of scrimmage, it kind of reminded me briefly of Brian Thomas Jr. for a guy that's that size.
Okay.
So I understand that they're not apples to apples. He went to a smaller school. I get that. And that's where it's hard to make that projection, because, was he dominating against small, lesser talent? Some people had the same questions about Jalen Coker, and I loved Jalen Coker a couple of years ago, coming out of Holy Cross, but you had the same questions, right? So I see a lot of things about his game that excite me for him to be able to be a guy that you can probably get in round 3 or maybe even round 4. So Ted Hurst is a name to keep an eye on, not only for the Raiders, but any team that's in need of, kind of a vertical threat on the outside as, an X or maybe a Z.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right. We kind of went a little bit deep onto the Raiders there, but that's okay, because
you
obviously
did. You took a curve.
I did.
A Raiders podcast today too.
Suddenly. Well, when you've got someone like Fernando Mendoza going off at the first, you got to kind of address that up. So going back to the quarterback position, of course, is there another quarterback that you want to make sure that people have their eyes on? We've mentioned Ty Simpson, but besides him, or if you want to talk about him more, why he would be a good ad for any team, what's a quarterback we should be keeping an eye on Thursday?
Well, on Thursday, I think it's only going to be Ty Simpson is the only other guy that could potentially be drafted in round number 1. So, but
sure. So
if we're talking day 2, if we're talking day 2, a guy from a dynasty super flex lens with obviously what we see with dual threat quarterbacks, Talon Green as a 4th round dart throw is someone with his athleticism. It's kind of like Jalen Milroe, but you can probably get him at a much cheaper price. So out of Arkansas, I'm certainly willing and able and will invest late round dart throws at Talon Green in super flex leagues. But Sam, the guy that drives me absolutely nuts, and I have no idea what the hell to think of him, is Drew Aller from Penn State.
Okay.
Because this guy has one of the best arms that, like, as far as pure arm talent, being arm elasticity, being able to drop it at different angles, he can just uncork a moon ball that can travel 70 yards in the air. It feels like effortlessly. And there are times when I looked at his tape, even dating back to what it was like 2024, that I saw him throw with anticipation into the middle of the field. And when it comes together, boy, oh boy, does it look like this kid can be a freaking player, because he's got all the damn physical tools from an arm talent perspective. And he's not a bad athlete either.
Yeah.
But you talk about accuracy issues, and you talk about games where he just laid a freaking egg, and that is littered on his damn college resume there at Happy Valley in Penn State. So his accuracy inconsistencies are enough to absolutely make you pull your hair out or throw something at the television. It doesn't make sense sometimes. Now, I get that he didn't have the best weapons at Penn State, but he also didn't have nobody. Tyler Warren was there. Theo Johnson was there. Like, there were other players that are going to get drafted out of this Penn State backfield too this year. I mean, Aller is someone that has all the physical tools, Sam. And I say this, if like he lands with the Rams or the Minnesota Vikings, or
I was going to say
that has a quarterback
minded coach
that can get their hands on him and develop them for, like, he doesn't need to see the field at all in 2026.
Yeah.
But developmental guy that has a ton of physical tools, 5-star recruit coming out of high school, had flashes at Penn State. If he would have came out last year, Sam, I actually think that there would have been an opportunity, because he had a pretty damn good 2024 college football season. There may have been a little bit of noise for him to maybe sneak into the back end of the first, kind of like Jackson Dart did. But, you went back to school and you had a disappointing year, and now you're here looking at maybe a day 2 pick at best, probably a day 3 developmental guy. But he's got so many tools that he does intrigue me as a late round dart throw in dynasty rookie drafts in Superflex leagues.
I like that. I mean, and I think those are really great teams to call out in terms of coaches that are quarterback whisperers that can use someone in the back that they can develop. And it's interesting too, because, you bring up the Rams, and obviously we're knowing that they're going to be one more year with Stafford. We've heard that, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to likely retire. So in terms of backup QBs in LA, there is a vacancy there. And it could make a lot of sense. And given big arm talent, that you've got someone like Stafford to be a veteran mentor too, would be huge for his career to have that. So hopefully he goes somewhere that can utilize that and obviously help develop him, because if he's got that kind of big beast talent that you're highlighting there.
I would have said the same thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers to take him, but his year at Penn State, I don't think that the Yinzers would be very happy about it.
Yeah, probably not. And knowing us, we wouldn't even help him get out there. We'd just throw him on the field and be like, figure it out. Again, staying so optimistic this season, aren't I?
You are.
All right. We've talked a little bit about wide receivers. We've talked about Carnell Tate. We've talked about, probably Casey Concepcion going early. I feel like I've heard a lot about Casey Concepcion as draft buzz is going in different teams, and a team that I've seen a lot of people mock him to would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you feel like that is a good fit, or is there another receiver you'd rather see there? Because the Chiefs are likely going to end up taking a receiver this draft because there's several, probably because there's some off the field issues they have to deal with one of their receivers, and I do feel like there's some additional depth they need to continue to build. They've brought back Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator, and I feel like to breathe life into this offense that it absolutely needs, besides also obviously addressing the run game that they did by going and grabbing Kenneth Walker, I think it makes sense that the Chiefs go and grab a depth wide receiver.
So you've got kind of a yak machine in Rashee Rice, in which, by the way, however your feelings are about Rashee Rice and whatnot, the NFL did an investigation and they are not going to discipline him. So it seems as if, unless something else develops or something, Rashee Rice has something else come up, that Rashee Rice is going to be ready for week number 1 of the 2026 NFL season. So, and then of course you drafted Xavier Worthy a couple of years ago, and he's more of a speed demon. So, if you're looking at what's missing from that receiver room, you have the speedy, vertical threat, you have the yak monster. I think it's more kind of an outside possession guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, Carnell Tate certainly would be one that I think probably is the best fit for what the team needs, but I don't think Carnell Tate's going to be there at 9.
No.
So probably Jordan Tyson over Mekhi Lemon, because Lemon kind of his skills overlap with what Rashee Rice already provides for that offense. Mm-hmm. And I kind of have the same feeling about Casey Concepcion, maybe on the back end of the first round, which Sam, with the pick that the Chiefs got from the Rams, I don't know if Concepcion's going to be there. Like, I'm kind of believing some of the noise when it comes to A.J. Brown being on his way to the New England Patriots, which I kind of think that the Eagles could be in the mix for a wide receiver here. So whether that be Omar Cooper Jr. or Casey Concepcion, like, I actually kind of think that the Eagles could be in the receiver market as well. So if there's any receiver else like that, at the back end of the first that kind of stands out to me as someone that I think could be a potential fit. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe not even at the end of the first, like maybe, day 2, day 3 guy to kind of round out the receiver room.
Yeah.
Like a Ted Hurst, like I already mentioned, kind of stands out to me. Malachi Fields is a big body from Notre Dame that feels like a potential option there. Maybe even Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. So those are all kind of guys that to me feel like maybe are in the mix for day 2 or day 3 for the Kansas City Chiefs at receiver.
That tracks. Let's talk about running backs, because I know that this is a slightly lighter running back class, but there is a lot of love for Jeremiah Love as we build towards Thursday. And I'm really curious to see where he ends up. Do you feel like he is going to be going in the first round? That has to be my first question.
In the first round? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I would.
How Sam, early is too early?
I think he could be off the board as early as number 3 overall to the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, really? You think the Cardinals are going to do that?
No, I don't think they could. They should.
But that's why I say you think they're gonna. I don't think that they should. I don't think they need to. It does feel like a move that they would make, given the other moves that they've made this offseason, with bringing back James Conner, bringing on Tyler Algier, and they still have Bam Knight, Trey Benson. Yeah, bury a top talent at the 3rd overall. That doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm not, look, again, I'm not saying, but Sam, you look at a lot of the recent mock drafts, and from, a lot of respected people that that are plugged in with a lot, going off of intel and what they're hearing. I think part of the reason why the Kansas City Chiefs paid market value for Kenneth Walker and why the New Orleans Saints paid market value for Travis Achan, by the way, it's not Etienne.
Yeah, new way to say it, guys. Keep it in mind.
Want to make sure we say it right. is because they don't believe that Jeremiah Love is going to be there at 8 or 9. So I don't think the Cardinals will take him. I do think that they'll go defense, or they'll trade down with potentially the Kansas City Chiefs, who have an extra first, who may be in the market for trying to get an impact edge rusher in either David Bailey or Arvell Reese. Or they'll stay put and maybe take CeCe Mawanoa. But the Titans at 4, the Giants at 5, and the Commanders at 7. He's going to one of those 3 teams. I think that there's no doubt.
Sorry, you just said Commanders?
Commanders at 7, yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good fit and makes a lot of sense. A lot more sense than the Cardinals to me. I guess I was kind of curious, like, how soon is too soon for a running back in this class? Because I know the drop off.
Should not take Jeremiah Love, Sam. They should not take him.
But the drop off after him is pretty steep. So I know that obviously if he's going round 1, the rest are going to be going later. So I was curious to see how far you'd imagine he would fall if he fell very far at all. So I do think that Commanders make a lot of sense for him. Do you feel like he gets past 10?
No.
Okay. No. Just temperature gauging.
I thought the Giants may
learning.
take him at 5. If the Commanders,
of course
if everybody goes defense early, Sam, which there are a lot of really nice defensive prospects in this draft. If everybody goes defense heavy in those first 7 picks, and with the Saints and the Chiefs both signing, veteran running backs this offseason, he should be there at 10. And as much as we love Scadaboo,
come on. My dynasty shares can't handle that.
I don't want that either because I've got dynasty shares too.
So don't speak it into existence.
You're asking me where he could go.
Tell me your opinion, but don't tell me your opinion.
I'm sorry.
I'm asking you a question and telling you to shut up at the same time. This is our dynamic.
That's exactly what you're telling me.
Thank you for turning in to Sideline Banter. This is usually what happens.
Gosh.
Wait, before we get to more running backs, we got a question in the chat I want to make sure that we get to. This one from Go AZ Cards, Charles. Love a wide receiver to KC. What are the odds they don't take one in the first 3 rounds? Follow up to that is because Barry Sanders and CMC did great with their draft teams, 0 championships. All right, so what are the odds that the Chiefs don't take one in the first 3 rounds? A wide receiver in the first 3.
So they don't take a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds. I just want to double check here real quick. So I think that they have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. So I think it's a pretty good chance that one of those 4 picks maybe goes to a wide receiver. I just think that they have some needs on the defensive side of the ball, Sam. Like they lost Justin Watson and Trent McDuffie this offseason. So corner is certainly a need for them. I think that they could probably use an edge rusher as well, maybe even some help at safety. Like defensive wise, like I really think that they need to focus their efforts on the defensive side of the football. I know it sounds crazy because Spags has always done a pretty damn good job there, but that's where I see them potentially needing to allocate those resources.
Yeah.
So I'd say there's a 25% chance that they don't take a receiver within the first 3 rounds.
I think that's a fair percentage there. I feel like if they don't go, obviously they have 2 picks in the first. If it's not the second round, the 3rd round pick, they're not leaving without a wide receiver. There's just no way. I mean, I feel like it's such a Chiefs move to make sure that they leave one of these rounds with an extra rookie receiver to go into camp, to make things competitive, to get some heat and to get some, gas going in that offense because they need it. They absolutely need to get this offense riled up and get fans into it. And I just think it makes a lot of sense for them to do.
I still like Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy as far as options for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm too high on those 2 players. Maybe I am.
Yes. Oh, and then a clarifying one on the Jeremiah Love discussion cards is leaving in the chat here. Love is related to standard CMC comment as a Cards fan.
Gotcha.
Yes, that makes all the sense. Jeez. All right. We already talked about Jeremiah Love. Obviously, we said that there's a drop off after him at running back. Is there another back you want to make sure that fantasy managers keep an eye on going into this draft? So it's going to be outside of round one. It'll be Friday. It'll be Saturday. Who's another name you want to make sure people are aware of that if they go to the right spot, he's going to be someone that you're going to write down on your draft list this season?
Jonah Coleman, Washington.
Confidence in that answer. Immediacy.
He doesn't have the home run speed that is going to, wow you, like Mike Washington from Arkansas, who just tore up the NFL Combine, right? Mm-hmm. But I see so much wiggle in short area, quickness, burst, and change of direction, and craftiness and vision as a runner, contact balance. And Sam, he is, 5'8", 220 pounds. And I think even last year, there at some point during his collegiate career, he was up around 225, 229. He's a big, thick back. And he's built for, 3-down work. I actually really enjoy Jonah Coleman's tape. Again, the long speed it's not there, but once upon a time there was another, Northwest running back that I wasn't wowed with his measurables and his burst and speed scores and stuff like that. But I just watched him and I thought he could play. And it was Bucky Irving. And I talked myself out of it because of the measurables portion of it. But I told myself I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to trust the tape. And I trust the tape of Jonah Coleman. So
I like that comparison too. I mean, just kind of also speaks to if the right team grabs him and sees the skills and puts him in the right position to be that guy and doesn't demand speed out of someone that doesn't already have it in the tank, but needs the muscle. This could be a really great ad for the right team. What's a team that you'd love to see him with?
Seattle Seahawks. I mean, right there in the Seahawks backyard there in Washington as a member of the Huskies. They probably, the scouts there have been able to watch him play quite a bit of football during his collegiate career. So I think that the Seattle Seahawks with Jack Charbonnet's injury, I know they signed Emmanuel Wilson in the offseason and they have George Holani, who is entering his second season on the depth chart currently. And there's just not a whole lot there right now at that position, with Charbonnet probably not being ready for week number 1. So Jonah Coleman, I think, would make a lot of sense at the end of the second or at the end of the third round, like a day 2 pick for the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, yeah, makes a lot of sense. While we're on the subject of him, we've got this one in the chat from Go AZ Cards. If Coleman goes to Washington, who is dead, JCM or White fantasy-wise?
JCM. I mean, this is where things from a dynasty lens get very interesting on draft night. There are 2 players whose fantasy value is on the line on Thursday night with Jeremiah Love.
Ooh.
It is Cam Scatterbo and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
Oh man!
If Love goes to either of those teams, their value immediately plummets. If he goes to the Titans, then you get to do a happy dance, I guess. But I mean, because they could, both of those teams could invest. But I actually think Scatterbo is probably going to have the inside track, whereas JCM, they clearly did not trust him in passing situations last year. And then you go and get Rachaad White, who that's probably the best thing that he's done throughout his NFL career is be a reliable pass catcher in Tampa Bay. So, I mean, JCM could probably still, kind of get his value tanked on day 2 or day 3. Whereas I think Scatterbo's safe if he avoids Jeremiah Love, being drafted by the Giants at number 5 or number 10.
All right. I like that. All right. We've gone long on today's show, obviously, because we're talking draft and it's your favorite thing. So I'm not mad about it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for at least one tight end to talk about and maybe a happy landing spot for them. You've already talked about a lot of love for Kenyon Sadiq. Is he the guy that you want to make sure that people underline going into this draft? Or is there another tight end you'd want people to make sure that you get So that gets some love as well.
A couple of the guys that are worth keeping an eye on, Oscar Delp and Eli Stowers, are certainly guys that are on my radar. But Justin Jolie, I know that I think on our last episode we had a chance when you were like trying to like push me and go, hey, who's a tight end they're going to draft? Well, they're going to draft a tight end, right? So who's a rookie that we like? It's Justin Jolie, and I'm not going to sing the Jolie song again.
Thank God.
Anywho, no, but I see a little bit of Harold Fannin in his game, so I could see a reliable pass catcher who can give you something after the catch. For a guy that's, north of 250 pounds or right around there at his playing weight, I think the guy's got some twitch, got great contact balance and really good hands, and seems to understand how to beat zone coverage. So those are things I really like about his game. And in the role that's relevant for fantasy, that's a guy that I'm willing to throw a dart on, in the last round of your rookie draft, in particular in tight end premium formats.
All right. Well, I'll have to keep an eye on him and see where he ends up, because obviously with so many tight end premium leagues being so popular, there's a lot of dart throws that people are throwing on tight ends, especially given how many tight ends we were able to do that with last year. Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, a lot of tight ends that came in early, and we were like, hey, got to make sure that we get them on the draft board somewhere, and they ended up having great fantasy success. So really curious to see what teams go out there and grab a tight end or two. So that'll pretty much do it for us here on Sideline Banter. And next Tuesday, of course, we will now have the answers to all those questions of where everyone's landing. So we'll talk about favorite landing spots for some of these rookies next week. Make sure you guys tune in, like and subscribe to the Women of Fantasy Football channel. Everywhere you get your podcasts, you don't miss a single episode. Tate, I'm excited. I know we'll be texting back and forth on Thursday to see who's gone where. And I can't wait to see all the memes and gifs that you send me of excitement for players that go different places, or for sadness for where some players are going to end up. So we'll see how these all turn out. Last thoughts before we send off for the rest of those that are tuning in.
Go Arizona Cardinals _Charles said the most shocking love landing spot not named the Cardinals. Give me the Los Angeles Rams at 13.
Nice. That would be shocking. One, him falling that far, and two, given their backs that they already have.
The backs that are already on the roster. But do I think Jeremiah Love's probably better than Blake Corum and Kyron Williams? Yeah. That offense could be really, really, really scary with McVay pulling the strings.
You never know what's going to happen with McVay, but it could be a lot of fun. I dig it. It's also fun to see the Rams having such a high pick, so we'll see how it goes. But guys, thank you so much again for tuning in. Again, we'll see you next week. Tune in for another episode of Sideline Banter with Tate and I. We will be talking about the rookies again and all their fun landing spots. So have a good week and enjoy the early Christmas that is the NFL draft. We'll see you guys next week.